So I want you to imagine that you're driving down the highway at like 70 miles an hour. But instead of looking through the windshield at where you're going, you are just completely fixated on the rearview mirror.
Oh, wow. Yeah, just bracing for impact.
Exactly. You're just staring backwards, terrified of getting rear-ended. You have no idea what's actually coming at you in the road ahead. You're just consumed by what you're running away from.
Which is a terrifying way to drive.
Yeah.
But, I mean, according to the neurologists and psychologists we're looking at today, that's basically how most of us live our lives.
Right. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into some incredible research today on this concept called breaking through, which is all about the art of goal-focused living.
And the main mission here is really exploring this huge shift from what the sources call a fear orientation, which limits so much human potential, to a goal orientation.
Yeah, it's all about how choosing where you put your attention literally physically rewires the brain.
Yeah.
And I think we really need to set the tone here right off the bat.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because this isn't about, blaming yourself for feeling afraid. If you're constantly staring at that rearview mirror, you're not broken.
Right, it's not like a personal failure.
No, not at all. It's just your biological machinery doing exactly what it was programmed to do.
Yeah.
So today is really about understanding that plumbing so you can finally take the wheel.
I love that. So to get to the point where we can actually look forward, I mean, we have to understand why we naturally default to staring over our shoulder in the first place, right?
Yeah, why is fear the factory setting? Well, it all comes down to evolutionary survival biology.
Like the primitive brain stuff.
Exactly. Deep inside the temporal lobe, there's this little almond-shaped cluster called the amygdala. And over millions of years, its main job was just threat detection.
Keeping us from getting eaten by predators.
Right. In ancient environments where there was extreme scarcity and constant physical danger, being hypersensitive to threats was literally your best survival advantage.
So when it spots a threat, what actually happens in the body?
It triggers the HPA axis, which floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline.
Yeah.
Your heart rate spikes, your pupils dilate to let in more light, and blood literally drains from your digestion into your limbs.
So you can run or fight. That makes total sense. But I have to play devil's advocate here on behalf of anyone listening right now.
Okay, go for it.
Because, I mean, the listener isn't dodging saber-toothed tigers on their way to work. They are, trying to finish a creative project or navigate a tricky conversation with a spouse or just ask for a promotion.
Right, the environment is completely different now.
Yeah. So are we basically punishing ourselves for a biological system that worked perfectly for cavemen but just totally ruins our modern lives?
That is the exact paradox the research highlights. Your primitive brain, it doesn't distinguish between a physical danger and a social or emotional risk.
Wait, really? It treats them exactly the same.
Exactly the same. The amygdala processes a risky career move using the exact same neurochemical pathways it uses for a literal predator.
Oh man, that explains so much. No wonder a job interview feels like life or death.
It does. And the problem is, today's challenges for you, they are creative. They're relational. They require imagination and forward movement.
And you can't be imaginative if you're internally running from a tiger.
Precisely. Applying that ancient threat detection system to complex modern life just leads to overthinking, paralysis, and what the text calls the slow death of unlived potential.
The slow death of unlived potential. Wow, that's heavy. But it's so true. When you're terrified of making a mistake, you just freeze.
Yeah, you don't create anything. And the sources bring in psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi here, the guy who pioneered the flow state concept.
Oh yeah, flow state is fascinating.
It really is. His research shows humans are most alive and capable when they're engaged in a purposeful challenge moving toward a goal. Flow requires expanded awareness.
Which is the total opposite of the fear response.
Exactly. Flow releases dopamine, anandamide, serotonin, all these chemicals that let the brain make rapid creative connections. But fear collapses your awareness into a narrow tunnel.
Right, because if my pupils are dilated to look for a threat, I'm getting tunnel vision. I can't be expansive and creative if I'm frantic.
You physically cannot do both at the same time.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if our ancient brain is just naturally prone to hijacking our modern lives with cortisol, how do we actually overwrite it?
Well, we have to train the system. The sources point to a very specific filtering network in the brain that acts as the gatekeeper.
It's called the reticular activating system, right? The
Yeah.
RAS.
Yes, the RAS. It's this bundle of nerves at the base of the brainstem, and the brain uses what's called competitive filtering.
Meaning it has to choose what to pay attention to.
Exactly. Every second, your nervous system gets bombarded by like 11 million bits of sensory information. But your conscious mind can only process about 50 bits.
Wow, 11 million down to 50. That's a massive bottleneck.
It is. So the RAS acts like a bouncer at the door of your consciousness. It only lets in the 50 bits that actually matter
Yeah.
based on what you've primed it to look for.
It is exactly like a social media algorithm. I mean, think about it. If you keep clicking on doom-scrolling, fear-inducing posts, the algorithm learns what you want.
It assumes you want more threats.
Right, so it feeds you a nightmare feed. But if you start clicking on like goals or inspiration, the algorithm pivots and gives you opportunities. The RIS is doing that with physical reality.
That analogy holds up perfectly on a neurological level. If you have a fear-primed RAS and you walk into a networking event, your brain literally deletes data about potential allies.
It just edits them right out of your perception.
Basically, yeah. It only lets you see the risks, the obstacles, the people who might judge you. But if you have a goal-primed RAS in that exact same room, you see resources and openings.
That's wild. So two people can be in the exact same room, but they are experiencing completely different realities.
Different attentional filters of the exact same reality, yes.
And shifting, this isn't just, thinking happy thoughts. The sources talk a lot about neuroplasticity here. This is physical, structural remodeling of the brain.
It really is structural training. It relies on Hev's law, which is this idea that neurons that fire together wire together.
So when you focus on a goal, you're firing specific pathways.
Exactly. And the more you fire them, the brain reinforces them by wrapping them in myelin. It's a fatty substance that insulates the circuit so the signal travels faster.
Like upgrading the wiring in your house.
Yes. And meanwhile, the fear pathways you aren't using start to undergo synaptic pruning. Your brain literally absorbs the unused connections.
So you're carving a deeper riverbed for the goal and letting the fear riverbed just completely dry up.
Exactly. And crucially, focusing on a goal routes blood flow up into the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of executive function and creativity. Fear suppresses that area completely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if we need to train our mental algorithm, our RAS, to look at goals, how do we actually do that?
It takes very specific input.
Because I know if I just sit at my desk and quote-unquote think about what I want, I just end up in a spinning spiral of anxiety.
That's a great point. And the research makes a massive distinction between thinking about a goal and looking at a goal.
Okay, what's the difference?
Thinking is abstract. It's circular. It usually happens in the brain's default mode network, which easily drifts into past regrets or future worries.
Yeah, that sounds like my typical Tuesday afternoon.
Right. But looking, on the other hand, is an embodied, sensory-rich, present-moment contact with the goal.
So saying something vague like, I want to be successful, that's just thinking.
And it fails completely. The nervous system has nothing concrete to track with a vague statement. It needs a clear, vivid image. You have to feel the goal as already present in potential.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on that phrase. Feeling it as already present? Isn't that just like toxic positivity?
Are you mean
Like pretending everything is fine when it's not? Like living in a delusion where you pretend your bank account is full when you literally can't pay rent? That seems dangerous.
It's a really common misinterpretation. But it's not about pretending a falsehood is true. It's not denying your current struggles.
So what is it doing?
It's about contacting the reality of the goal's possibility. You're giving your brain a concrete coordinate. By feeling the possibility of that future state, you create a real neurochemical shift today.
Oh, I see. So you aren't lying to yourself that you've crossed the finish line. You're just locking the GPS on to the destination.
Exactly. You're giving the RAS the exact emotional and sensory data it needs so it can start filtering your environment for the stepping stones to get you there.
That makes a lot more sense. It's direction, not delusion.
Yes. But there's a catch. You have to hold that goal with openness, not desperation.
Because desperation is just fear in disguise, right?
Nailed it. Desperation is just fear wearing the mask of ambition. It's the fear of not achieving or fear of being unworthy. And physiologically, desperation is identical to fear.
So your amygdala is still running the show.
Right. True goal focus is open and curious.
But let's be real for a second. The moment you start vividly visualizing a massive goal, like a huge career leap, your primitive brain is going to panic.
Oh, inevitably. The monster will show up.
The amygdala is going to scream that you're leaving the safety of the cave. So when fear inevitably pops up to block the windshield, what do?
The cardinal rule from the research is, do not suppress it. Suppressing fear is incredibly dangerous.
because it just goes underground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gets routed into your sympathetic nervous system. It turns into somatic symptoms like tension headaches or digestive issues, or you just have a sudden emotional meltdown over nothing.
Okay, so if we can't push it down, and we obviously don't want it to run our lives, what's the actual tool?
It's a neurological hack called affect labeling. When fear arises, you literally say out loud or in your head, I notice fear.
Just naming it, that sounds almost too simple.
It sounds simple, but brain imaging shows that putting the emotion into words activates the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. This area acts as a physical braking system for the amygdala.
Wow. So like the next time you get panicked before a big presentation or a career leap, instead of fighting it, you just say, hello, fear, what are you protecting today?
Exactly. You transition from being consumed by the fear to just observing it. You don't argue with it, because logic doesn't beat biology. Arguing just amplifies the cortisol.
Because arguing signals to the brain that there really is a massive threat to debate.
Right, so you label it, let the biological wave complete its cycle, and ask what it's protecting. Fear of failure usually just means the success of the project matters to you.
It's just information. Once you acknowledge it, you can just redirect your attention back to the goal.
You physically turn your head away from the monster and look back at the path.
But our minds can play tricks on us. Sometimes fear disguises itself as, being realistic or being cautious. When the mind is spinning stories, where do we look for the truth?
We look to the body. The body is the ultimate compass. The sources talk about the somatic signature.
The physiological signs of what we're feeling.
Exactly. Fear creates a very specific somatic signature. Contraction, tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, your shoulders creeping up to your ears.
Yeah, everyone listening knows that feeling. It's like your body is literally bracing for a punch.
Contrast that with the somatic signature of a genuinely aligned goal. A goal creates expansion, aliveness, a deeper breath, and a forward-pulling energy.
So if your mind is rationalizing quitting something, you just scan your body. If you feel contraction, it's probably just the primitive brain panicking about growth.
Yes, and because the body literally stores that fear as muscular tension over time, you have to physically discharge it.
Through somatic practices, right, like breath work or movement.
Exactly. They aren't just wellness fads. They clear the noise out of the nervous system so you can actually focus on the goal.
So what does this all mean for our daily lives? We've got the RAS, neuroplasticity, affect labeling, the body compass. How do we make this a reality?
Well, breakthrough isn't an overnight event. You don't just wake up one day fear-free. It is a cumulative daily practice.
It's building a new physical structure in the brain. And the sources outline a whole methodology, starting with morning orientation.
Yes, how you start the day is crucial.
This part blew my mind. Because if you wake up and the first thing you do is check the news or your email, you are instantly priming your RAS for threat detection.
You're literally programming the algorithm to find danger for the next 12 hours. You're flooding a rested brain with stress hormones.
That is such a wake-up call, pun intended.
It really is. Morning orientation means you start the day deliberately focusing on your goal, visualizing that sensory-rich outcome before the world gets in.
You set the tone for expansion first, and then what about the rest of the day?
Throughout the day, you practice interruption and return. Your primitive brain will pull your focus back to the rearview mirror. It's inevitable.
So the workout is just catching yourself drifting.
Exactly. You notice the drift, you label the fear, and you gently return to the goal. Every time you return, you wrap a little more myelin around that goal-oriented pathway.
And finally, there's evidence collection, right? Deliberately looking for proof of progress.
Yes, because the amygdala naturally ignores good news. You have to force the RAS to log the wins, no matter how small. It gives the algorithm proof that the forward movement is working.
It's really active biological management, and I think this brings us to the core paradox of all this research.
Redefinition of courage.
Yeah, because society teaches us that brave people just aren't afraid, like their amygdala is broken.
But that's entirely false. Courage is not the absence of fear. The biological alarm system will always be there.
So what is courage, biologically speaking?
Courage is simply the presence of a goal that is so vivid and compelling that it exerts a stronger gravitational pull than the fear.
Wow, the fear doesn't disappear, it just loses its power to govern you.
Exactly. You take action not because you're fearless, but because the destination is more real and important than the discomfort of getting there.
Breaking through is just the steady transformation of someone who used to stare at the monster into someone who looks clearly at the path ahead. Everything changes when the direction of your gaze changes.
change the destination for your nervous system, and it builds the roads to get you there.
I love that. So, as you head back into your day, we want to leave you with a final question to ponder. We just explored how your attention dictates your biological reality.
It physically rewires you.
Exactly. So ask yourself, what is one environment, one daily habit, or even one relationship in your life right now that is secretly training you to look at fear?
And what would happen to your brain if you replaced it tomorrow?
Keep your eyes forward. We will catch you next time on The Deep Dive.